Welcome back to our continuing study on the Gospel of Matthew. We have been slowly but surely working through chapter 28. And part of the reason for, the lack of speed here is that there's a number of different levels of narrative here. And that's right now we are focused on the women. The women will soon fade from the story, and other characters will take center stage. Matthew chapter 28 and verses 8 and 9. I am reading from J.B. Phillips, the New Testament in modern English. Then the women went away and quickly from the tomb, their hearts filled with awe and great joy, and ran to give the news to his disciples. But quite suddenly Jesus stood before them in their path and said, "Peace be with you." In a moment of time, things were different for the women. Now, when we look at these women coming to the tomb, let's understand it from their perspective. And this is a bit of conjecture, but I think legitimate. These women had come to Jerusalem. There was a feast and the presence of Jesus. They had come here as visitors. What do I mean? Jerusalem is not in Galilee. So they had come from the north to the south to Jerusalem, the pilgrimage for the feast and for Jesus. So when I look at them coming to the tomb to prepare the body, my sense and read is that this was a leisurely event. What do I mean? They're not from the area. They are not doing this with the thought, I've got this to do, that to do, and then there's this, and if I have time, I got a couple of other things that need to be done. I kind of get the sense that when you look at their schedule for that day, this was basically it. They might be getting ready to move back to or head back to Galilee, but this was basically the thing on their agenda. And so they were going to prepare this body well. They were going to take their time. And in a sense, it is in a context in which we could say that they were looking at this as a final goodbye to Jesus. In that sense, they were looking at it backwards, not forwards. It was a poignant close to a chapter of their life for which they were not sure where things would go from here. Then the angel spoke, and their day and their lives changed just like this. The women were all of a sudden ready to hightail it out of there. We all understand that feeling. Think of the birth of your first child in particular, or the birth of your first grandchild. You are just waiting for the opportunity to talk about what has happened. In fact, some people will not even give a person a chance to say anything before they shower them with the news. The opportunity to share what has happened cannot come fast enough. This was a situation for the women. The problem was that they were in an area of tombs, and all these dead people did not make great conversationalists. And they were probably beginning to run like they had not since they were teenage girls. Now, I find it kind of interesting in the narrative. When I read it from Phillips, it's very clear that they were running. So, in other words, Jesus was not met right at the garden as such because they had to, as it were, build up a measure of speed. So Jesus was right there, but nearby. You see what I'm saying? They had to build up speed to be actually running. In the midst of all of this, Jesus appears to them. Now, their story is complete. They can go back to the disciples and say not only that he's not here in the tomb, which would not, in a sense, prove anything definitively. They could say they had seen Jesus. The first statement in that sense is a negative, and the second is a positive. So the negative statement is that there is no body there. No body. So that's negative. The positive is that they've seen Jesus, and those two together form a complete, as it were, unit. You have to believe after this encounter with Jesus that their running would be that much swifter if it was possible. They had hit bottom on Good Friday, and now on Easter Sunday, their joy was overwhelming. What would have struck the disciples the most when the women finally made it back to them? Was it what they told them or the joy? And kind of the way I picture it is that when the women get back, and from other gospel accounts, it's not just the two Marys, it seems that there were several women, that when they get back to the disciples, the women are going, yeah, 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 all over the map. And I'm sure, like most men, they're kind of going, okay, slow down, one at a time, one at a time. You speak, then you speak. And they're going, yeah, yeah, that sort of thing. There would still have been questions, but now they could not deny the reality. The empty tomb would have left them some questions, but now the encounter with Jesus changes the demeanor of the women. They know that he is risen indeed. There is an emotional side to the Christian faith that is real and legitimate. There's also an irrational side to the faith, where through reason and proof we can establish the credibility of the faith. You cannot ultimately prove something that has to be accepted by faith. We know that. We understand it. That's not what we're talking about here. What we're saying is that there is a side of the Christian faith where we have to understand things. That comes for reason. It's not just an emotional experience. And what we are saying is that the danger in the church that is ever present is we can have a Christian experience that is rational or a Christian experience that is emotional. But there are two sides, as it were, of one coin. The moment we separate one from the other, we are in trouble. An emotional Christian experience that is devoid of rational foundations, that is, biblical knowledge, a basic understanding of theology, the rights of the church, etc., is going to be a faith experience that is going to lead to all sorts of weird practices. And a rational experience of the faith, well, that doesn't touch the hearts of people. There must be something that is there. And the classic words of John Wesley after his conversion, his heart was strangely warmed. There was just that sense where it came alive to him. The Christian church is weak when we allow these two elements to be separated. When the faith gets reduced to only one of these elements, then we have begun to lose the faith. The faith must stir our emotions while challenging our intellect. The person who is rationalist in temperament must work at allowing the emotional side of the faith to rise up. The person who is an emotionally charged person must learn to undergird their faith experience with the reasons to be a faith. Faith is at its best when it embraces both dimensions.